All right, good afternoon, welcome back. Today we're going to do chapter 15, section 3. We're going to finish up on Japan. And today we're going to talk about the growth of a military society. What you are seeing here would be samurai. These would have been your militaristic individuals that would have been basically bound to nobles who were the fighting force, and these were very fierce warriors. All right, samurai and shoguns are going to take over Japan. By the late 1100s, Heian was the great center of Japanese art and literature, but in the rest of Japan, life was very different. See, a lot of people kind of saw the fact that the emperor and his nobles at Heian were pretty disconnected from what was going on in the realities of the world. So this allowed the shoguns to actually begin to take over a lot of the power. Powerful nobles fought each other over land, and rebels fought against imperial officials. This fighting destroyed land, which made it difficult for peasants to grow food, so some poor people became bandits and thieves. So you're seeing this like degeneration of Japanese society because the emperor and many of the nobles, or many of the nobles that had moved to Heian, were neglecting their duties to take care of the country. So you're starting to see issues. Japan's rulers were so focused on courtly life, they did not see the many problems growing in their country. Now, the rise of the samurai. With the emperor distracted by life in the court, Japan's large landowners, or daimyo, decided that they needed to protect their own lands. So the daimyo are the landowners. These are the individuals. They're going to start rising in power because they feel they need to protect themselves. They hired samurai or trained professional warriors to defend them and their property. The samurai wore light armor and fought with swords and bows. Most samurai came from noble families and inherited their positions from their fathers. Now, they may have inherited their positions from their fathers, but we're not talking about, like we've talked about before, with people who inherit the kingdom and they inherit simply because they're the child of the king. These people inherit their positions from their fathers, but they are highly trained warriors. The word samurai comes from the Japanese word for servant. Every samurai was expected to serve his lord, and all samurai were required to be loyal to him. Having an army of samurai was very expensive, so they were often paid with land or food. So you'd be given like small tracts of land, or you'd be given food as opposed to money. Only the most powerful samurai received land for their service, and most did not live on the land but profited from it. So basically they might get some land for their service because they were prized samurai to have. And then what would happen is they would live in another location, but they would have peasants who would farm their land, and then they would get the food from that land. Every year the peasants that worked the land gave the samurai money or food. Now, shoguns ruled Japan. Many of the noble outside Heian were unhappy with the way Japan's government was being run, and they wanted a change in leadership. Eventually, a few strong noble clans decided to try and take power for themselves. Two of these powerful clans went to war with each other in the late 1150s, and for almost 30 years the two clans fought. Clans are basically groups based on family ties. The fighting was terrible and destroyed land and property and tore families apart. In the end, the Minamoto clan won. Because he had a powerful army and the emperor was busy in Heian, the leader of the Minamoto clan became the most powerful person in all of Japan, even more powerful than the emperor, because like I said, him and his nobles were too busy worrying about the courtly stuff as opposed to worrying about what was actually going on in the country. The Minamoto leader decided to take over ruling the country, but did not want to get rid of the emperor. He kept the emperor as a figurehead or a person who appears to rule even though the real power rests with someone else. As a samurai, the Minamoto leader was supposed to be loyal to the emperor, but he decided to rule in the emperor's place. And as much as he was supposed to be bound to the emperor, there's also another side to that where the emperor is supposed to be bound to the people as well to do what's right by the people, and he was not doing that. In 1192, he took the title of shogun, or a general who ruled Japan in the emperor's name. So the shoguns now are going to become the real power The emperor is just power in name. When he died, he passed his title and power to one of his children. For about the next 700 years, one shogun would rule Japan. So the shogun, which would be the most powerful of the rulers, most powerful of the samurai, would be the person in control, truly in control of Japan, even though there was an emperor who lived there and kind of was the face of rule, but was not the true ruler. Under the shogun, who were military rulers, samurai warriors became more central to Japanese society. Samurai enjoyed many social privileges, and common people had to show the samurai respect, and if not, they could be killed. They were warriors, but they were also very dangerous individuals. Tradition also placed restrictions on samurai, like they could not attend certain types of entertainment, such as the theater, which was seen to be beneath them, and they could not take part in trade. So even though the samurai become the most powerful figureheads in all of the land, there are certain things they can and cannot do. Now, Bushido. Samurai live honorably. They live by a code called the Bushido Code. All samurai had to follow a strict code of rules that taught them how to behave. The samurai code of rules was known as Bushido, which means the way of the warrior. Both men and women from samurai families had to follow the Bushido Code. And obviously, if you didn't, then you would be dishonored, and through that dishonor, they would expect that you would take your life. The code required samurais to be brave and honorable fighters, and both men and women learned how to fight, but only men went to war. Women learned to fight to protect their home from robbers. So the women were warriors as well, but they didn't actually go to combat, but they were there to protect the home. Samurai were expected to live simple, disciplined lives, and they believed that self-discipline made them better warriors. Many participated in peaceful rituals that required great concentration. Some created intricate flower arrangements or grew miniature bonsai trees. So here would be like in a flower arrangement. This would be a bonsai tree that they would clip and keep, while others held elaborate tea ceremonies. Many samurai adopted Zen Buddhism, and this would be a Zen Buddhist or a statue of a Zen Buddhist, which stressed self-discipline and meditation, and this would be the statue of a Zen Buddhist meditating. More than anything else, Bushido required a samurai to be loyal to his lord. Each samurai had to obey his master's orders without hesitation, even if it caused the samurai or his family to suffer. Obeying his lord was important to the samurai's sense of honor, and honor was the most important thing in his life. I mean, you did not do anything to dishonor yourself. If he did anything to lose honor, a samurai was expected to commit suicide or to take his own life, rather than live with the shame. Such shame may result from not obeying his lord, losing a fight, or failing to protect his lord. Now, Bushido in modern Japan, how it kind of has worked its way into modern Japanese society. Although it was created as a code for warrior, it influenced much of Japanese society. Even today, many Japanese feel a connection to the samurai. For instance, his dedication and discipline are still greatly admired in Japan. Values such as loyalty and honor, which were central to the samurai, are still very important in Japan today, and they will act that way. You know, they expect that they're going to be good to their neighbors. They expect that they're going to act honorably. So it is something that is in their DNA. For about a century, the shoguns kept order in Japan, and supported by the samurai, they were able to put down challenges to his authority. Eventually, there would be more serious threats to his authority. Now, foreign invasion, order breaks down. One of the greatest threats to the shoguns was an invasion by the Mongols from China. Kublai Khan sent an army to conquer the Japanese islands in 1274 AD. Faced with invasion, the shogun sent troops to fight the Mongols. Japan's warring nobles set aside their differences to fight the enemy, and they were aided by a great storm that sank many Mongol ships, forcing them to flee. In 1281, the Mongols invaded again, and this time they sent two huge armies that threatened to overwhelm the Japanese warriors. For weeks they were locked in deadly combat, but once again a huge storm destroyed much of the Mongol fleet, forcing them to return to China. The Japanese called the storm that had saved them the kamikaze, or divine wind, which they then will use in World War II. They believed the gods had sent the storm to save Japan. Many nobles were left unhappy by the war and felt the shogun had not given them enough credit for their participation in the fighting. Many came to resent the shogun's power over them. So now what you're going to have, instead of dealing with foreign invasion, you're going to start dealing with internal rebellion. After the Mongol invasion, new problems arose for the shoguns. The emperor, tired of having no say in the government, began to fight the shogun for power over the country. And at the same time, many of the daimyo, which these are the people that were in control of land, the big landowners, that controlled much of the land, fought to break free of the shogun's control. During this power struggle, small wars broke out all over Japan. By the 1400s, the shoguns had lost much of their authority, and the emperor was still largely powerless, and the daimyo ruled much of Japan. Each daimyo controlled his own territory, and within that territory he made laws and collected taxes. There was no central power of any sort to impose order in Japan during this time period. In the 1500s, these strong territorial leaders fought to take control of all of Japan. Now, strong leaders are going to take over. Unification. The first leader was Oda Nobunaga, who gave his soldiers guns that had been brought to Japan by Portuguese traders, and was the first time guns had been used in Japan. With these new weapons, he easily defeated his opponents. After Oda died, other leaders continued his efforts to unify Japan, and by 1600, Tokugawa Ieyasu had conquered his enemies. In 1603, Japan's emperor made Tokugawa shogun. From his capital at Edo, now Tokyo, Tokugawa ruled all of Japan, and this is Tokugawa. His rise to power began the Tokugawa shogunate, or rule by shoguns of the Tokugawa family. Early in this period, which lasted until 1868, Japan traded with other countries and let Christian missionaries live in Japan. Then they decided to close off all basically influence from other countries. So they went to isolation. Not all who followed Tokugawa liked this contract with the world, and some feared that Japan would become too much like Europe and the shoguns would lose their power. So in the 1630s, the ruling shogun closed Japan off from the rest of the world. The rulers also banned guns, fearing peasants with guns may defeat their samurai armies, because the samurais used swords and bows. They didn't use guns. The combination of isolation and lack of technology allowed the samurai period in Japan to extend into the 1800s, something that would not have happened had they been on the mainland. I mean, this was something that was only possible because they were in the islands. And then eventually they're going to be taken over, or they're going to be forced to trade by other countries who are more modernized. Now, that is the end of chapter 15. Make sure you have all your worksheets done. Make sure you have all the readings done, and be prepared for your test, which will be in 2 days. Have a great day.